Hi and welcome back to Garden Ninja. Now today's video guide is giving you an update on the wildflower meadow I created 3 years ago to show you how it's progressing. And if you want to create your own wildflower meadow, I'm going to be giving you loads of tips along the way. So come on, let's get cracking. If you've not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit the red button to subscribe today. Also click the bell for notifications. We'll have access to hundreds of garden design hints, tips and hacks from me, the Garden Ninja. And best of all, it's free. It's mid-July here in the UK and the meadow is at its finest. It's looking absolutely wonderful. It's teeming with wildlife and there's loads going on. If you haven't already checked out the full series of how I've created this wildflower meadow, then I'd advise you to go back and watch those episodes because it will show you how I turned this, that used to just be a blank field, into this gorgeous, rich, diverse wildflower meadow. And although I've got rather a large space behind me, you can apply this methodology to any size garden. So go and check those out if you haven't already. For those who have already watched it, let's take a closer look at some of the wonderful plants and insects in the meadow. Come on, let's get nosying. Now there are a few plants that have really boomed in the meadow, and one of them behind me is El Campaign, the Inula Helenium. It's gone absolutely nuts. Other plants such as chicory, we've got Jacob's Ladder, Achillea, have really worked out well. A few of the other specimens that are planted, such as the toadflax, haven't really taken, and that may be due to the weather or the fact they just don't like these conditions. And sometimes whenever you're planning a meadow such as this, you need to be prepared for some plants to go really wild and others to either die back or be a bit sluggish, and that's okay. It's all about learning what works. And you never know, those toadflax may pop up next year because all of the plants I've planted are perennial, meaning they come back year after year. So this isn't an annual meadow where you've got to rescatter seeds. This is perennial, making it slightly different. Although it's not a true meadow in the sense that all the flowers live for 1 year, I think it gives you much more bang for your buck. Now if we take a look down here, we've got one of my favourite herbaceous perennials, and it's a native, it's yarrow, Achillea. Now we've got loads of white Achillea over here, but I think there's been a bit of a mistake on the seed packet because a few pops of pink have appeared, and I think it's because some of the seeds have been mixed up, but it's a happy accident because the white and the pink go really well together and just blend. Now, all sorts of insects love Achillea because they're really easy to land on because they've got these umbellifer flowers, a little bit like plates. And these pops of white kind of punctuate the whole meadow and they really draw your eye. And I just love the fact that these are kind of colonising amongst the grasses. Now the chicory is looking fantastic. It grows to about 1.5 meters to 2 meters when it's in full swing. This is a relative baby one here. It was slow to start last year, but I can start to see how the chicory is picking up throughout the meadow. And you can actually use the roots to make kind of a coffee substitute. When I was down south for garden rescue the other week, I saw a verge covered in this and it just looked absolutely insane because you've got these pale sort of cornflower blue flowers that pop out down the stem almost in a regimented line, and there's some insects already down here and they absolutely love them. So these are a really nice contrast against the yellow and the white because blue, as we know as designers, is a contrasting colour to yellow. What I'm also really impressed with in this meadow is the use of trees. You don't often see them, but as I said, I really wanted some height. And over time, I want this kind of wild meadow area to evolve and adapt, and maybe in 10 or 20 years turn into its own woodland. We've got a birch behind me there. As I spin round, we've got a fir. And then if I walk over here, where are we? Right, behind me, we've got the red alder. There it is. Now, if you watched the video last year, I thought it had died. And when I looked at the base of what was the bare root, there was a tiny little red bud. And I thought, I'm going to give that another chance. And look, within a year, it's put on maybe 5 or 6 feet worth of growth. It's one of the fastest growing trees here in the UK, and it has loads of beneficial properties for wildlife, I believe, such as squirrels and even moths. Talking of fast growing trees, let's fast forward and have a look at one of the fastest in the garden. It's a rocket. Now take a look at this behind me, and if you've watched video 2, you'll know when this went in, it was no bigger than a pencil. This is a European larch, and they grow at a rapid rate. That's nearly 5.5 feet in 3 years. It's just getting bigger and bigger. The beauty of the European larch is that it drops its needles in the winter, so it's deciduous, meaning that all those needles drop off and then each year they regenerate. It's a really amazing tree if you've got the space. Now the shrubs are also doing really well, and you'll notice that when I created this meadow, I didn't just want meadow flowers, I wanted trees and shrubs to extend the season and also bring some height and bulk to the garden. In front of me, we've got this gorgeous Gelder rose, the viburnum, and it's done really well given that I bought it as a bare root. So if you check back on that first video, watching me plant it, you'll see just how far it's come, and it only cost me a couple of pounds. Now here's another interesting shrub. It's the dog rose, and I've got about 4 or 5 that kind of punctuate throughout the meadow. Now a month ago, this was covered in bright pink, almost neon flowers, covered in bees and insects. And it's a really tough shrub. You can use it as a hedgerow if you want to clip it, but I'm just using it as early season interest throughout the meadow. Here is another really interesting specimen on the white colour spectrum. Now it's not actually a meadow plant at all. It's sometimes classed as a shrub. It's an Artemisia, otherwise known as a mugwort. And I've popped it in here just to lift some of the darker areas. As I said, it's not really a meadow plant, but it is semi-evergreen. So throughout the winter, if I'm careful when I strip all this back, I can leave this and it will bush out. Gets to about 1 metre, another 1.5 metres in width, but it has this beautiful scent when you crush the leaves, and it does have medicinal properties. In fact, if you've ever tried the drink absinthe, I believe that mugwort is one of the ingredients for that super potent alcoholic beverage. It doesn't do a huge amount in terms of flowers, but it does add that beautiful foil against everything else. I've also noticed in the wildflower meadow that the grass is becoming stronger and stronger every year, so I'm going to have to bite the bullet and start to introduce some yellow rattle, which will parasitise the grass, which isn't a bad thing. But for the first year or two, I wanted to avoid that because I wanted to see what might arise naturally. We've had some really unusual specimens, such as that early purple orchid. So in September, once I've cut all of this back and removed the growth, I'm going to start to introduce some yellow rattle, which is an annual which will feed off the grass rhizomes and slow it down, so that next year we might get even more weird and wonderful changes. How exciting! Have you got gardening questions that you need answers for? Well, why not head over to the Garden Ninja forum on my blog, where you can ask me anything about gardens, plants and garden design. There's a whole army of other garden ninjas there that can help provide answers to your questions. It's a really great way to meet the other ninjas, so head over there now. So there we go, a review of the meadow in year 3. Now I know this isn't a typical annual meadow, it's a hybrid, and the reason why I've done that is to show you what you can do with native herbaceous perennials to help reduce the effort required to keep a meadow going. The wildlife certainly aren't concerned. There's absolutely thousands of insects in this garden. If you've liked this video, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the bell below. Make sure you tell your friends about my channel Garden Ninja, because all of the content here is free for you gardeners to learn more about becoming awesome gardeners. If you like what I do, make sure you let me know in the comments below. And if you've got questions, why not use the Garden Ninja forum? I've been Garden Ninja, happy gardening.